And good evening, everybody. Along with Matt Willett, Will McKinney, and Rich Goulart, I'm your host, Carl Pratt. Welcome to the video sports page. Tonight, it's edition number 1130 for your viewing pleasure. During this week's edition of our program, we're going to show you some highlights of the first ever victory by the Plymouth North football team on their brand new all-purpose field. You might not think it's much now, but they'll think way back when and say, who was that very first victory against? And it came against a very interesting opponent. Speaking of high school football, what a juggernaut they got going over in Duxbury. They continue to rack up victories, and we'll talk about their latest win in a few moments. Speaking of Duxbury athletics, we'll talk about the field hockey program under the direction of a first-year new coach. However, she's been with the program for 4 years. We're talking about Terry Vanderwater, her team off to a terrific start after 7 games. Meanwhile, on our program this week, we'll also spend some time with Gary LaPierre. And if you follow WBZ Radio for any length of time, if you grew up in this area, you knew he was the voice for WBZ News 44 years. I caught up with Gary recently, and we talked about his career. But right off the top, let's begin our program by showing you some highlights of Silver Lake varsity soccer, boys soccer more specifically. The Lakers picked up a victory earlier this week at home at Sirico Field in Kingston, turning back Quincy. Silver Lake jumped on top very early in the game, settled for a 5-2 victory. They're very happy. Things are starting to come together now. This was a program that went 2 rounds into the tournament a year ago. They're hoping to do at least that this fall. All right, let's call on Matt Willett behind the scenes. Let's show you the highlights of Silver Lake boys varsity soccer.
Walk through him, go walk through him. Take it. There you go. John. Stay with him, Marley. Stay with him. Handball. Away. Let's go, Bjorn. Squeeze over. Let's go. Come on. Adam. No, we're good. Other side. Right.
Hey, I'm Stacey King, three-time world champion of the Chicago Bulls, here in Boston for the Boston Celtics Chicago Bulls game. I love sports, and I'm here right now with a giant in sports right here, Carl Pratt on Cap Sports. You see how big he is right now, right? 6'10", how tall are you, about 5'1"? He's a giant in sports, ladies and gentlemen. Check out his show.
Okay, as we continue with this week's edition of the Video Sports Page, we want to tell you that head coach Dan Correa's Silver Lake Lakers back in action again at the tail end of the week, trying to improve on a mark of 3-2-1. All right, let's continue with our program. Let's talk about a very successful field hockey program over in Duxbury. Okay, as we tape this program on a Thursday, Duxbury was scheduled to take on Scituate. Scituate and Duxbury always have great battles, but prior to that, all Duxbury has done is rack up 7 impressive wins, most recently 7-0 against Silver Lake. I had an opportunity to interrupt practice earlier this week, and I spent some time with their first-year head coach, Terry Vanderwater. Terry's been with the program, however, for the last 4 years, 3 as an assistant, now as a head coach. Let's call on Matt once again to push some buttons for us. Let's roll the interview. Edition of the Video Sports Page. As you know by now, our show goes to the town of Duxbury, and you always see the headlines about the outstanding Duxbury High School football team, which for obvious reasons they get the Attaboys, picked up their 29th straight victory last week, a lopsided win against New Bedford. But there's some other very successful programs over in Duxbury, starting with the girls field hockey team, which is practicing over my shoulder. I'm pleased to be joined by the first-year head coach, Terry Vanderwater. We appreciate you spending some time. You've been connected with the program for 5 years. This is the first opportunity to be the head coach. Is it different for you?
It's definitely different. I have big shoes to fill. Pam Manley built a great program, but the leaders on this team are great. All the players are great, and they've really come together well this year.
Well, obviously, I led the tip-off right at the start of my interview here. Some great success. Obviously undefeated. What's it up to, 7-0 so far?
We are 7-0 overall, and we're 4-0 in the league.
Obviously, this week you had a very impressive victory against Silver Lake. I think it was 7-0, but as we tape our program on a Thursday night, you've got a huge matchup with Scituate.
We do play Scituate on Thursday. They've always been a tough team, very strong, very aggressive. They have a great goalie, but I think our team is up for the challenge. Strong offense, strong defense, and we're getting ready to rumble, as they say.
There you go. All right, Terry says strong offense and strong defense. How about if I throw something in there for you? 46 goals for and just 3 against. I don't want to say in your wildest dreams because you know this history, but have these girls even surpassed your expectations after 7 games?
I think they have. I think the offense has, with Hannah Murphy, the Smith twins, and Bella McCann, have done a great job in scoring. Meredith Wright and Lily Smith have also scored as links. And then the defense, led by Allie Hamill and Catherine Nutter, have just really gelled and really keep the ball down, feeding it to the offense and allowing us to score and keeping the ball away from the goalie.
Why do you think you guys score as many goals? Girls, why do you think you girls score as many goals as you do? Do you think it's because it's AstroTurf, it's not a bumpy field, you can maybe have a little more success with passing, things like that?
Well, we do play on grass as well, and yesterday's victory against Silver Lake was on grass. We have very talented athletes, many of whom play more than just field hockey. So they're multi-sport players. They've played on championship teams in other sports, and they just really come together well as a team. They have great skills. Hannah Murphy's already up to, I don't know, I think she's probably around 12, 15 goals already this season. So just that alone is hugely helpful.
And let's talk about this, to have the type of success offensively as you've had. Anytime I've watched a girls field hockey team, I hear more whistles than anybody can possibly count, but that prevents so much rhythm, lack of rhythm and continuity. How are you able to do it?
Well, a couple of years ago, there was a new rule, self-start pass. And so while there are a lot of whistles, the self-start pass, you can start with the ball. You don't have to wait to start up. And that's really helped to drive the offense forward and really helps get the game moving.
All right, talk about this. You heard me mention the success with the football program, obviously. Boys and girls soccer, to name a couple, basketball, and the list goes on and on. How about as far as field hockey? Do these girls feel like they take a backseat to any sport?
I don't think so. The girls, we won. This is the Patriot League. We won for the third time last year. And then we went to the South Sectionals and defeated Walpole to win the South Sectional Finals. And Walpole had not lost, I think, in 8 straight South Sectional Finals. So they are a very talented team. And I think field hockey is becoming more and more prevalent in the state. There are more feeder programs, there are more youth programs. That really helps a lot. Boston Globe this year, should be in about a week, has added field hockey as top 20.
There you go. That's awesome. Before I let you sneak away, let's talk about it. A year ago, this team had 20-plus victories. Obviously, you're on a pace to surpass that should things all click in the postseason. How about the experience coming back, your expectations, knowing what you graduated from a year ago?
We have a lot of, we have 9 returning varsity players, plus another 4 that played up. And they all played a lot together this summer. And they want to exceed their expectations of last year. And each game they go out, they want to do just a little bit better. And then the next game, just a little bit better. And so we're just taking it one game at a time. And hopefully at the end of the year, we'll be at states and holding up a trophy.
Yeah, we certainly hope so. All right, here's your situation. They want to get better after each game. I don't know how you can get better than a 7-0 victory, a shutout victory on the road, but they do have a huge game on Thursday against Scituate. Coach, we appreciate your time. I know you want to get back with the girls, and good luck the rest of the season.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it, Carl.
You bet. We'll continue with more, so stay with us. All right, we certainly appreciate the time of the head coach for Duxbury, and we wish her good luck the rest of the season. And boy, it doesn't matter what sport it is over there in Duxbury, they win, whether it's boys soccer, girls soccer. Let's talk a little bit about the field hockey program, the football program, and you know by now what I'm talking about. And they always get a tremendous amount of interest in all their sports and great participation by the student body. Well, not too long ago, I had the pleasure and the honor of attending the Massachusetts Broadcasters Hall of Fame dinner that took place up in Quincy. And I had an opportunity to grab an interview with a gentleman I've listened to growing up, WBZ Radio, the news anchor. We're not talking a lot of sports here, but we're talking about 44 years in the business with WBZ. And if you're sitting at home now and you've grown up in this area, you'll know my next guest. So via videotape, let's call on our guys to roll it, as I had my interview with Gary LaPierre. This week's edition of the Video Sports Page, and it's an honor for me to spend some time with my next guest. Growing up in the Plymouth area, used to put on WBZ Radio. He had that very distinctive set of pipes doing the news for WBZ. This is Gary LaPierre. It's been many years, but that voice is still fresh in my mind. I'm over here having some salad, and I heard you talking, but you've been gifted.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I miss it. I really do. I don't miss getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, which I did for 43 years, but I miss the business, I miss the people, and so on. But I had a good run in this town.
And talk, if you can, at BZ, how it was such a family for so many years, because it was you and Gil Santos, just to name a couple that was that same familiar people every day.
I think that's what made it. I mean, first of all, WBZ was what? The second radio station in America, licensed in America. So it had a tradition there to start, but it sort of became a New England institution, no matter what other stations were doing around us. And there were a lot of successful radio stations around us. We were still sort of the bookmark, if you will, of New England radio, because it goes back to way back to the Carl DeSuze days, Dave Maynard. In fact, a couple of minutes ago, I just ran into Carl DeSuze's daughter, God rest him. And she's in the broadcasting business now. So, yeah, it definitely made its mark in New England and we're kind of parochial around here. We wake up in the morning, you hear Carl, or you hear Gary or Gil Santos or whatever, you say, everything's okay with the world.
We don't have to worry when we're flipping through. If we don't have our glasses in the car, we knew we hit WBZ.
Yep, that's right.
Let me ask you, who was that first bigger-than-life figure where you covered news for so many years? That first bigger-than-life figure when you were a youngster coming up through the ranks and you covered something and you said, wow, that's so-and-so.
Well, the first big assignment that I had as a reporter in Boston in 1964 was to cover the Beatles when they came to this country. They don't get any bigger than that. And I was at the Hanscom Field in Bedford at midnight to greet their plane and spent the next 2 days with them in Boston. So I tell people I traveled with the Beatles in the mid-'60s, early 60s, and people don't buy it. After that, it was probably presidents. I mean, I got into the news business heavy and did a lot of presidential politics, and my memory of sitting down with Ronald Reagan is still as bright as can be. The first president I met was Lyndon Johnson, so I go back a little ways. And
Talk if you can about Boston, though. There's something happening every day.
I don't think there's a better news market or sports market in the country. I really don't. Reporters come from other cities around America, where they come to Boston, say from Chicago or even Los Angeles or San Francisco, whatever. Boston has a taste for news because we draw out of 6 New England states, not just one big state like California or New York City. You cover one story. That's in New York City. Become a reporter in Washington. We'll say, well, that's a big national position. But you know what you cover in Washington? One story. It's all politics right up there in Capitol Hill. Boston's got it all. I mean, we've got everything from the highest murder rates around to the highest divorce rates. So whatever. It's a great town to be a news person.
If you can tell from our graphic, you don't have to read it. You can recognize this voice if you grew up in this area. My guest, former news anchor for WBZ Radio, Gary LaPierre. I've got to ask you, did you ever think about leaving Boston? You spent here for so many years. Were you ever approached when somebody heard that voice and said, you know what, you'd be ideal for NFL films, or you'd be ideal for this, if you know what I mean?
I've thought about it. You mean while I was in the business? I thought about it once when I didn't like the general manager of the station at the time, didn't think I was being treated right, and I said, I'm going to go to another city. But somebody said to me once, Gary, you've got a great reputation in the city of Boston, and if you think you can pick that up and transfer it to St. Louis or to California, it doesn't work that way. You've got to earn that in a city. And I didn't think I had another 25 years to start all over again. I never wanted to leave this area. I really didn't. I had a chance to go national. I had a chance to go with Chet Huntley and David Brinkley in Washington to work in their bureau in Washington. I'm a homer. I just wanted to stay in Boston, and that's where I stayed, and that's where I still am.
Well, I know it takes time, but I know for me growing up, it was you, and I'm not just blowing smoke. It was Walter Cronkite, it was Harry Reisner, and things like that. And I know it takes time to make that time in people's living room, but where we're so much focused on ratings these days, do you think we're ever going to have those icons anymore?
In radio, I would say probably not. That may be presumptuous of me to say that, but radio has changed, broadcasting has changed. Sources of information have changed. They get it off of a computer now. They get it through a tweet or a Twitter or whatever those things are, which I don't do. The broadcasting industry has changed so much. I don't think you'll have the comfy old days where people get up in the morning, go to the breakfast table, and turn on WBZ and say, there's the guy that's been telling me what I need to know for the last whatever years. It's just there's too many other interruptions in people's lives and too many other sources of information. We're being bombarded with it constantly. It's an explosion of technology that sometimes I have a difficult time keeping up in spite of my cell phone.
There you go. All right, I got to ask you quickly. During your heyday, which wasn't that long ago, you're out in a restaurant having something to eat. How many people look at you and they're not sure your name, but they recognize this? I think I know this guy because of that voice.
That still happens, thank God. After you retire, you say, well, your name might last for a year or two, and then it's Gary who? But it still happens. When I open my mouth, I've just blabbed it around so much in New England that fortunately I still get some of that, and I have to say it feels good. I have a home in Florida. We spend a lot of time down there, and there I am Gary who, because I don't have a national image, and I could give them my driver's license and they still wouldn't know who I was. So, yeah, it's kind of nice. It's kind of nice to come back to an event like this where a few people recognize you, and I appreciate your interest as well.
Let me tell you, and honestly, I was just sitting at my table, my back to Gary, and I heard him talking to somebody, and I said, wow, instantly I knew. Quickly, if you had a message for the youngsters trying to make it in this business, whether it's cable TV or radio or TV, what could you tell them?
Oh, gosh. If I understood that well enough to be able to impart it to young people, I'd feel pretty good about that. I still go out and talk in colleges, mostly journalism classes and that sort of thing, because that doesn't go away. In a lot of the parts of the business, it has gone away in terms of how good journalism is or how bad it is. And what people consider journalism many times isn't. But yeah, there are still a lot of opportunities in broadcasting business. But don't limit yourself to one thing. If you just say I want to be in radio, that might not do it for you. You've got to consider other possibilities: the electronic media, television, and so on, production, the internet. There's a million ways to make money in the broadcast industry, but radio, I think nowadays is going to be tougher than it ever was.
Well, listen, it's been my pleasure to spend some time with you. I know you want to mingle with some others, and
right.
believe me, I grew up with you. It really is an honor to spend time with somebody I grew up listening to on WBZ 1030 on the AM dial.
You're very kind, and I appreciate it.
We appreciate it. Gary LaPierre joining us this week on the Video Sports Page. Opportunity to give you the updated high school football schedule for this weekend. Because of Tripoli implications, we've got some funny starting times. How about the Plymouth North program against Sandwich? That'll be 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon. Hingham at Plymouth South. That game will also start at 4 o'clock. Meanwhile, Whitman-Hanson will be at Pembroke on Friday. That is a 3:45 start as the Titans take their 1-1 record against 2-0 Whitman-Hanson. The Green Dragons of Duxbury will put their 29-game winning streak up against Middleborough Saturday afternoon. Kickoff is slated for 4 o'clock, and Malden Catholic will visit Silver Lake. It'll be Silver Lake's homecoming. Coach Mike Avini's team over at Silver Lake looking for their first victory of the season. Silver Lake went up against Plymouth North last weekend. You know, oftentimes Silver Lake and Plymouth would meet on Thanksgiving. That was the rival way back when. Not the case any longer. They now meet once in a while for a non-league matchup. Silver Lake, of course, now in the Patriot League. The Eagles, under the direction of Kevin Cobbin, they participate in the Atlantic Coast League. Well, those two teams met recently. We have an opportunity to show you some highlights now. Let's look at the Eagles against Silver Lake action from the brand new all-purpose field. Let's get some of the audio portion. It was 3rd and 1. He picked up just shy of 3 yards. 1st and 10 now. We'll call it the 47-yard line.
I think Corey Boudreau is yet to touch the football 22. He's a great weapon to have on offense.
Well, Cosgrove goes over the middle. He's got a receiver wide open. The pass is going to be complete, and it's going to be an Eagles touchdown. Score the touchdown for number 10, Alex Potter.
Alex Potter wide open. Cosgrove in stride with the pass. A great throw by the sophomore.
Nemus goes in motion. Nemus is open in the flat, looking for the ball. He's got it, and he's going to have a decent gain, a 1st down. Nemus, he just scooted out there. Nobody really gave him any respect, and let's give the quarterback, Finn, some credit.
You have to, the wide out runs off the corner. The outside linebacker is going to get over to protect that flat area. And seeing it for what it was, number 5, the quarterback, Daniel Finn,
ends up being a 20-yard pickup, so things have suddenly changed with 15 seconds to go in the half. They're going to set up a screen. They're going to have a decent gain on the play. This is Reynolds twisting and turning, and Reynolds is down very close to the touchdown. They set up the screen nicely. Number 25, Jeff Reynolds, took the pass. The football 2nd and 6 from the 41. Panetti in motion. Ball popped loose. Silver Lake may have jumped on top of it. Not a lot of bodies scrambling around. Gay, I think, took the handoff. And Silver Lake, unfortunately, stumbles on 2nd down.
Kyle Briggs, number 73, Pat Hicks, 35, on the stop for North, as well as 43, Joe Walsh.
Let's try to focus that in just a whisker if we can. 3rd down and 6 from the 41-yard line. Obviously, 2-down territory for Silver Lake, Dave.
Oh, absolutely. Got a good field position. Got a great quarterback and offensive line. This 4th down is foregone conclusion on this drive.
They want to go to the air, rolling to the right. They've got a receiver there, and a nice catch by Costa, tight roping the sideline. Costa with 1 man to beat, and it should be a Silver Lake touchdown. I see no penalty flags on the play. There was good coverage by the Eagles defense, but what a nice catchable soft pass thrown by Finn.
Sure was, Cal. The nicest pass I've seen thus far this season.
1st and 10 for the Eagles after the big interference call. 2:32 to go in the game. Pitch back goes to Carr, wants to get outside. There's Carr's speed, twisting and turning, and Carr staying on his feet all the way down to the 26-yard line. Carr's 20th carry of the football game. He goes from the 46 to the 27-yard line, maybe the 28. Let's see where they... Welcome back, everybody. Along with Dave Reardon and Kyle Murphy, I'm Carl Pratt. Huge fourth down for the Eagles with 59.7 seconds to go in the game. 4th and 8 from the 25-yard line. Dropping back now is Cosgrove. Gets flushed out of the pocket. He throws on the fly. He's got a receiver there, and the ball is just short. But we're going to have a pass interference penalty whistled against Silver Lake.
Yeah, impeded the receiver's ability to finish off his route there, Cal.
Wow.
He got right in Alex Potter's way.
Holy Toledo, not Alex Potter. All right, the Silver Lake Lakers battling the Plymouth North Eagles. The Eagles eventually scored. They took advantage on that final drive of 2 pass interference calls against Silver Lake. And you know what? Through the magic of video, as I was putting that together, I went back frame by frame. And poor Mr. Nemus from Silver Lake, he got jocked on the play. He never touched the intended receiver from Plymouth. But those are the breaks, unfortunately, in sports, but never even made contact. So tough break for that young defensive back. All right, let's continue with our program now. Let's quickly talk about the success over in Pembroke for the golf team. Their record is now 7-1 on the season following a 41-31 decision this week. The medalist was John Nelson. John Nelson shot a 37. Pembroke is now 5-1 in Patriot League action, 7-1 overall. All right, as we continue with the video sports page, we want to tell you there's a new head coach for the Sacred Heart program. All right, we have an opportunity to show you some volleyball highlights as Sacred Heart took on Blue Hills. Let's push some buttons and show you these youngsters in action. Well, we showed you a quick peek. We're going to show you some more Sacred Heart volleyball down the road. They had a terrific home victory against Bristol Plymouth. All right, we're just about out of time. We'd like to thank you for yours and invite you back with us again next week. It was Rich, it was Matt, it was Will that put it all together. So where there's a will, there's a way. I've been your host, Carl Pratt. Health and wisdom from the Video Sports page.